Workbench application is accessible from the Start menu right after Iconics installation. In general, Workbench is a main configuration tool for designing projects and setting up all Iconics data providers and application servers. To run Workbench correctly and to have access to all available features, there are some prerequisites and assumptions to be met. At first, all of the Iconics essential services must be running. Also, the sufficient license has to be deployed and access permissions must be granted to the given user if Iconics security is active. Besides of that, the initially defined SQL server must be up and running to have access to configuration databases. Now let's take a look on Workbench layout. The application window is split into multiple parts: Ribbon menu, Center configuration part, Project Explorer, and the Task Explorer or Data Browser. This default layout and look and feel behavior can be customized as desired by usability tools located in Ribbon menu. So what about the Workbench architecture? Workbench, in fact, consists of two parts: server part and client part. Server part is a Workbench point manager which is closely related and communicating with frameworks. This part handles data access, manipulation, and propagation. Client part is the Workbench application that visualizes the project content, state, and setup and allows propagation of user inputs to the server part of Workbench and interacts with the project configuration databases. Workbench is closely connected and communicating with SQL Server, which works as a repository for all configuration databases. Workbench can keep multiple projects in the Project Explorer tree, but only one of them can be active at a time. A Workbench project can consist of one or multiple servers that could be located remotely and distributed according to the functionality. For example, alarming server, historian server, application server, asset works server, and visualization server. Let's take a closer look on Workbench application. The main purpose of Workbench is managing projects, which means creating and designing new projects or connecting and maintaining the existing projects, upgrading outdated databases and tables, performing configuration backups or restore, and so on. A project could use either a single, unified database, which contains configurations and data tables for all application servers or multiple databases, while each of them is related to individual application server. Both approaches have their own pros and cons, but in general, Workbench is able to handle both of those types. Ultimately, it is also possible to have multiple configuration databases which are aggregating data for related application servers. In this case, there could be, for example, separate configuration database for alarming, which consists of AlarmWorks server, logger, and AlertWorks. Then we will have configuration database for assets, which contains AssetWorks, Asset Analytics, Energy Analytics, plus Facility Analytics. Then we can have Hyperhistorian database or historical database, which contains Hyperhistorian logger, Hyperhistorian exporter, and Hyperhistorian SPC configuration tables. Also, we can, for example, have data connectivity configuration database containing the BACnet, GridWorks, Modbus, SNMP, and, for example, web services. So, we can have multiple configuration databases, each related to a couple of related application servers. Now we will talk about most important Workbench features. Workbench is designed to be as much user-friendly as possible in terms of project development. Thanks to features that help to optimize Workbench ease of use, such as layout modularity, items multiplication, export and import, data drag and drop, pack and go, and others. Workbench allows to export and import various parts, branches, or even single items. In addition, it is possible to transfer the whole project, including custom files and displays, onto another server using pack and go feature. As an example, this could be very useful for project migration from the development environment to the production environment. Another useful feature of Workbench is project reporting, which can create a nice-looking configuration or runtime reports in various formats, for example, CSV, XML, PDF, and so on. Those reports are based on SQL Server reporting services and require support from the connected SQL Server side. Workbench also offers various possibilities and tools to monitor, diagnose, and troubleshoot the project state and data communication. As an example, we can mention TraceWorks, MonitorWorks, or installation details. Besides of those, Workbench also contains special tools which allows advanced configuration of framework server and platform services parameters. Workbench also supports online changes, which means that whatever change is done in the project configuration, it will immediately affect the runtime behavior of the changed application server. Besides of that, Workbench allows to perform so-called synchronous editing. It is based on fact that more than one Workbench application is connected to the same configuration database. When this applies, and some of configuration changes are done from the multiple Workbench nodes at the same time, those changes are properly applied and all Workbench nodes are affected by those changes together.